Who is David Rowe?
David Rowe is the infamous DR.
Right.
It's talked about a lot. He was at the memorial for Bob.
Yeah,
He was the guy on the video screen.
Right.
Yeah, that we figured out how to. That was kind of interesting
That
because
was a terrific technological achievement.
Now we're going to bring this into the future. I need everyone's attention. This has probably never happened before. Future of Renaissance Festival technology. We got an iPad, and DR, David Rowe, is piping in live from New Orleans to do a song for you over the internet through the sound system at the Jump right here, right now. The future! Perfect!
Your throats are freezing a little bit.
Why would it freeze? We're at a Renaissance Festival.
We need more volume.
Yeah, we need to crank him.
Are we ready? Farewell, my friends, I'm bound for Canaan. I'm traveling through the wilderness. Your company has been delightful. You do not leave my mind distressed. I go away behind to leave you, perhaps never to meet again. But if we never have the pleasure, I hope we'll meet on Canaan's land.
what we figured out. We practiced it a couple times and figured out that he needed to turn off his incoming sound because there's a lag, a latency.
Right.
And so once we got ready, and told him, okay, we're ready. Okay, now turn off your sound and start singing.
And
we'll sing with your voice. And because otherwise he would hear us and then he would slow down. It's like
back and forth.
But that was pretty magical, I thought, because he was with a group called Celtic Stone when I first hit the
That
circuit.
was with Bob, wasn't it?
Bob played with everybody.
Okay.
Bob sat in with Celtic Stone and is on many of their albums. But DR was the guitar player and piano when that was appropriate. And singer, he was kind of like me, or what I've become, which is the guy who can play with almost everybody. And but now he lives in New Orleans. Last I heard, he's got a piano on wheels that he wheels out to a particular corner in the quarter, and French Quarter there, and plays, like he might have a trombone player or a bass player or a small group shows up to play with him, and they do street music, and then he rolls it back out of the way and goes back home. We did a lot of outside gigs too, because he knows a lot of those old swing tunes and New Orleans jazz kind of tunes. And we had this one gig in Oswego, where Sterling is, and where we get there and get set up, and then another band shows up, and it turns out we've been double booked.
Oh.
And so we kind of worked it out where we played a set, and then they played a set, and then we played a set, and then we did some stuff together or whatever. But it was not. And then at the end of the night, the owner didn't want to pay us because, I guess, I don't know. It's one reason why I like doing Renaissance festivals. Is that
It's predictable.
It's predictable. You make a couple phone calls or a couple of emails now, and you get 8 weekends of work, 6, 7, 8. This festival, I don't do the whole festival, but it does 13 weekends most years.
Yeah.
And it's a solid contract for 2 days a week. And whereas you make the same number of phone calls or more to get your gig at a bar, and then you get there and it's only for one night. You get double booked sometimes.
Yeah.
At the end of the night, I've actually, with a friend of mine's band in Austin, I've seen money change hands the wrong direction because the drummer drank too much, and so the band owes them money.
Oh my.
And I was like, you know, this is really not a way to make a living,
Honest.
especially in a town like Austin or say Nashville or
Yeah.
someplace where musicians go because they want to be there, and so they'll work for nothing, and the bar owners know it, so they offer nothing, and some people can make a living in Austin, but it's you have to be able to play with everybody because you have to play every night of the week. And
Oh, yeah.
Renaissance festivals are easy. I work with and for nice people. The patrons are great. I don't have to. I do a little advertising of my own, but I don't have to. It's not like my job.
Yeah.
Whereas and if you're a band or a solo act, pretty much a great portion of your time is spent promoting yourself, and that's just, you know, I'm not as good at that as I am at the playing part.
Well, you've been recording other musicians, other acts for years and years. You've got a solid reputation for excellent recordings. I think I told you some time ago, your recording of Nero's expedition up the Nile, I've listened to that because it was just intriguing song, right?
Yes.
I've listened to recordings of that for years. And when I heard yours with Bob taking the lead and singing it's the best recording of that song that's ever been done.
Wow. I don't think you have told me that, though. I appreciate that.
The way the instruments come in, the voices come in, you're a master of that. You really are.
Nero's expedition up the Nile failed because the water hyacinth had clogged the river, denying Nero's vessel passage to the Nero's expedition I'd walk the river, the Night Rio's vessel passage through the smooth of Nubia. Nero's exploration of the Nile failed.
That song was recorded, the instrumental part of that song was recorded live.
All at once, all the mics.
All everybody at the same
one
time.
take.
Well, we may have done a little bit of splicing here and there,
Yeah.
but it's still one session. And between Dr. Sick and Bob playing all those great, and Alex I think is on there too.
Yeah.
Playing all these great melodies and counter melodies. It just, I have to say, that is one of the favorite things I've ever recorded. Then we added in all the voices, and it was very magical. That whole album, Burley Minstrels, when we first started out, I had a gig at a place called the Disney Institute, which I don't even know if it still exists. It's one of the few things in Disney World that ever didn't take off. But they called me artist in residence, which means I had 2 nights of shows, and they gave me a hotel room.
All right.
But it works. Artist in residence sounds very classy. But it was supposed to be a solo show, but Bob was around, so I hired him I paid him, split my pay with him. And we did a couple nights. Michael Marzella came up for like 1 or 2 songs, and they gave us a recording of it that was phenomenal. That the building had been designed by the techies. They said, we need this and this and this, and Disney said, sure, no problem. And like they had 2 or 3 excellent grand pianos. If you prefer a Steinway to a Baldwin or whatever, they had them. They said, what kind of microphone do you like to sing into? And I knew enough about recording to know the name of a couple of good microphones. And so I said, oh, how about an AKG 414? And he went, oh yeah, we got a couple of those. Wouldn't you rather sing in something better? Like, that's $1,000 microphone, even back then.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, sure. Tell you what,
You pick it.
You listen to me and pick what you think I need.
We be soldiers 3, pardonnez-moi, je vous en prie, lately come forth from the low country, with never a penny of money. Here, my good fellow, I drink to thee, pardonnez-moi, je vous en prie, and to good fellows wherever they be, with never a penny of money. He who will not pledge me this, pardonnez-moi, je vous en prie, pays for the shot, whatever it is, with never a penny of money. Charge it again, boys, charge it again, pardonnez-moi, je vous en prie, long as you've got any ink in your pen, with never a penny of money. We be soldiers 3, pardonnez-moi, je vous en prie, lately come forth from the low country, with never a penny of money.
And the seats it only held about 110, 120 people, but the seats, the cushioning in the seats, had the same R factor as the seat with a person in it. So you could do an afternoon sound check, and it would sound the same when the people got in there.
Oh my.
And the air conditioners were outside, and they were silent, but you could go from the room completely empty to completely full in 5 minutes, and the temperature wouldn't change more than like 2 degrees.
Wow.
So, like I said, it was designed by the techies. They said,
Yeah.
we need, to make this really work, we need this, this, and this. So they gave us this recording, and it was, and then we took that and pulled out the songs that we thought were good, and then went to a studio and recorded a few more songs. Basically it was about half and half or so, and we put together that first Burley Minstrels album, and so that album is, and even in the studio we did it live, which is like 2 of us, no fancy footwork or anything. So that first album is just 2 of us, with one cut I think has Michael on boron or something, and live all the way through. And then the second one took us 8 years. I mean,
You
it took us
lost
many
the
years
hard
before we even
drive,
started.
too, I think, didn't you?
Yeah, we lost about 6 to 8 months worth of work,
Oh,
and it took us about another year and a half. And that was a very sad story, but we had literally just like 2 days earlier had said, okay, I think we're done with the recording part of it. Let's start mixing. And that should have been my cue to immediately make a backup.
oh,
But then I dropped that hard drive, and I had backups from months earlier, but we had to re-record a bunch of parts that we'd gotten. And, anyway, I still kick myself over that, and I make lots of backups.
yeah.
If I had a good filing system, I'd know where they are. But I do still make them. But anyway, that second one, from the day we started to the day we were done, was about 8 years. And we were able to do, Bob at that point was concerned about his legacy, because he knew he was not, he had diabetes and Parkinson's. And and he basically said, no, I don't want to put out anything that isn't good. And our version of good is not necessarily his version of good. I've always had a more gestalt, like I said. I listen to the feel of what's going on,
Right.
and I'm not that concerned with every note being perfect. He wanted it to feel good and to
Yeah.
be perfect.
Right.
And so it took us a long time, but it is the album I'm the most proud of right now, because I think it is the most cohesive, the best playing, the best players.
And that is the Burley Minstrels.
That's the new Burley
the one that
Minstrels,
came out.
Mary Mary B, I think we call
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Now since we're met, let's merry, merry be, in spite of all our foes. And he that will not merry, merry be, we'll pull him by the nose. Let him be merry, merry, merry there, and we will be merry, merry here. For who can know where we may go to be merry another year? Brave boys, to be merry another year. He that will not merry, merry be, with a generous bowl and a toast, may he in Bridewell be shut up and fast bound to a post. Let him be merry, merry, merry there, and we will be merry, merry here. For who can know where we may go to be merry another year? Brave boys, to be merry another year. He that will not merry, merry be, and take his glass in course, may he then have to drink small beer, ne'er a penny in his purse. Let him be merry, merry, merry there, and we will be merry, merry here. For who can know where we may go to be merry another year? Brave boys, to be merry another year. He that will not merry, merry be with a company of jolly boys, may he be plagued with a scolding wife to confound him with her noise. Let him be merry, merry, merry there, and we will be merry, merry here. For who can know where we may go to be merry another year? Brave boys, to be merry another year. He that will not merry, merry be with his sweetheart by his side, let him be laid in the cold churchyard with a headstone for his bride. Let him be merry, merry, merry there, and we will be merry, merry here. For who can know where we may go to be merry another year? Brave boys, to be merry another year. Let him be merry, merry, merry there, and we will be merry, merry here. For who can know where we may go to be merry another year? Brave boys, to be merry another year.
The other thing I want to mention about DR is that lately he's been feeding homeless and hungry people in New Orleans.
Really?
He's with an organization that I guess they collect donations of food and maybe money from various places around the city, and it's like a soup kitchen, but I think they take it out to the people.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's just a wonderful thing. Much of New Orleans is below sea level,
Yeah.
but Netherlands has a similar problem. They have more of their land is below sea level and farther below sea level, I believe, and they make these gigantic floodgates that close off their harbors and things like that would cost $1 billion to make. I don't know, but they cost way more than we can think about. But they work. So when they get a big storm coming in, they just close off the harbor, and those big storm surges don't come in. Where if we used our resources in a way that would do that, like back in the 30s when they needed, like the work projects and the CCC and things like that, they spent a whole lot of money, and we have lots of good roads and parks and things like that to show for it.
Yeah.
And I'd like to see us getting back to that kind of
Yeah, instead of continually
focus.
hearing about the tragedies, let's invest in something that, how we have a success for a change.
Yeah.
One of the favorite people I used to love to watch perform with you is Michael Marzella.
Yep.
His stories are just...
And I've stolen a few of them.
Yeah.
The intros where he tells a little bit of history of a song, or sometimes I'm not even sure if they're
Maybe
true.
it's not true.
But they're great. But they work.
Great stories.
Like the whole thing about green sleeves.
Yes.
Yeah, I just love that his story about green sleeves, which I guess now that I mentioned, I should probably tell it. Is that he would say that green sleeves, of course, written by King Henry VIII for Anne Boleyn, I believe, but the origin of the term green sleeves, according to Michael, is that a maiden of the village, the maiden being an unmarried young woman, would be wearing white. But if that said maiden found herself in a field of new mown hay, and might find herself perhaps rolling about in said field of new mown hay, her white sleeves might turn a little bit green. And then he'd say it in such a way that, kind of get that little twinkle in his eye. And
Yes.
Yeah, he didn't come out this year because we closed before he came out. But even last year, when his first year in quote unquote retirement, he came out to visit, and you've seen me do this bit where I bring up what I call an entirely random audience member.
Yes.
Which means there's somebody in the audience that I know
Right.
that even though they're going to be in civvies and they're not going to be on a costume, I'm going to bring them up and perform with me. And because, I mean, people bring up audience members all the time at
Sure.
the variety shows, so I'm going to bring up an audience member. They just happen to know the songs really well.
Good choice.
So I've done that with him.
Yeah, he's got a terrific voice
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
and has been a performer for how long?
Longer than I have. I think story goes that he and his wife, Marilyn, his wife at the time, were, I don't know if they were both working for the St. Pete Times. I know he was. And right when Largo first started, and I think the first director of Largo was Ron Bolden, who also directed Scarborough Fair when I first started working there.
Okay.
But I don't know where he found them, and I don't know if they immediately became King and Queen, but for a long time they were King and Queen out there. I didn't get to Largo until '87. Largo was now Tampa.
Right.
Same company, same festival, just moved across the bay. And I got both of them on a couple of albums, or a couple of cuts on one album years ago. And then I've had Michael on a few things. So yeah, he's got that basso profundo.
Yes.
For to see Mad Tom of Bedlam, 10,000 miles I've traveled, my maudlin goes on dirty toes. For to save her shoes from gravel, still I sing bonny boys, bonny Mad boys, Bedlam boys are bonny, for they all go bare and they live by the air, and they want no drink nor money. I now regret that ever poor Tom was so disdained. My wits I lost when him I crossed, which makes me thus go chained. Still I sing bonny boys, bonny Mad boys, Bedlam boys are bonny, for they all go bare and they live by the air, and they want no drink nor money. My staff has murdered giants, my pack a long knife carries, for to cut mince pies from children's thighs, and feed them to the fairies. Still I sing bonny boys, bonny Mad boys, Bedlam boys are bonny, for they all go bare and they live by the air, and they want no drink nor money. And when I go a-murdering the man in the moon to a powder, his staff I'll break and his dog I'll shake, and I'll howl no demon louder. Still I sing bonny boys, bonny Mad boys, Bedlam boys are bonny, for they all go bare and they live by the air, and they want no drink nor money. So drink to Tom of Bedlam, come fill the seasoned barrel. We'll drink it all well brewed with gall, and maudlin drunk will quarrel. Still I sing bonny boys, bonny Mad boys, Bedlam boys are bonny, for they all go bare and they live by the air, and they want no drink nor money. Still I sing bonny boys, bonny Mad boys, Bedlam boys are bonny, for they all go bare and they live by the air, and they want no drink nor money.
Well, the other person that I associate with Tampa is Jerry Barry.
Yeah.
You perform with him down there regularly.
And other places as well. He's been coming out to the Texas Renaissance Festival a few years playing with Crown Hog. And then last year, not this year, he was supposed to be there this year, but of course the COVID thing hit. But he's been coming out to Scarborough Fair and playing with the Iron Hill Vagabonds. And that's a super group because it's the two Iron Hill Vagabonds and Jerry Barry and Chris Puente on bass.
Right, from
Cold Black
Rose.
Rose.
Yeah.
And so it's a super group. It's kind of like someone else called them it's Crosby, Stills and Nash of the Renaissance Festival. But and I share a stage with them at Scarborough. But Jerry is one of these people who, for years, he would give, back when tapes were a thing, he would give me cassette tapes of mixed things, and I would always learn, that's when I first learned about groups like Moxie Fruvus and just all these bands that I'd never heard before. And he'd give me a mixtape, and I'd listen to it and go, wow, who's that?
Yeah.
And he's got a huge record collection and knows pretty much every song on them. I'll call him up, hey, I just heard this great song by a group I've never heard of called blah, blah, blah. He went, oh yeah, I got 4 of their albums. And he's a great writer too. I don't know if you know. He wrote a song early on in the whole COVID thing about the sacrifices that you have to do so that we can actually get together again.
Yeah.
And then we've been doing this. There's an app called Acapella. They spell it as one word and they don't spell it right, but it's still it's an app where he'll play the guitar part and sing something, and then send it to me, and I'll play the bass part. Then we'll send it to Vicky, who'll play some violin parts, and it's all video. There's a video of it, and then he takes it and pulls out all the musical parts, mixes them, puts them back in, and I've done this now. He taught me how to do it, and early on at Scarborough, we did a part in glass for them.
Right, I remember seeing that.
And then for Sterling, we did Old Lang Syne.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you saw that one.
Yeah.
That had 15 windows, or 16 windows.
Yeah, right.
And that was technically very interesting because you have to render it each time you send it to somebody.
Right.
And so I had to go back and find that first time that person had sent it to me, cut out just that window, and then drop it into the final product. And it was it took a long time, but I was really happy we put that out at about 6:00 on what would have been opening day.
Opening day, right. Yeah, that was a really nice gesture. And the Sterling, virtual Sterling that they created,
Right.
Michael from Volga was the one who put that together,
Yeah.
I think. Yeah, there was such an outpouring of, we need to get together somehow.
Yeah.
And I think you guys pulled it off.
Well, thanks. Yeah.
It was a nice approximation, as good as it could get.
At both of those Texas shows, I run a Sunday night jam that the participants and performers, not always performers, but almost everybody plays some kind of instrument and sings a few songs. So some of the crafters will come over and some games people and maybe a jouster or something like that. They'll bring instruments to these jams. I set up usually 16 microphones
Oh, my.
and 8 places to plug in an instrument. And we sit in a circle or semicircle, usually a circle. And my main job is to just say, okay, great song, you're next. And I just go around the circle and try to keep songs moving. And then I play bass, and we all try to sing along. Jerry is one of those stalwarts. He tries to make everyone, and almost, even though at the end of the day, he's like, I'm too exhausted, there's no way I'm going to make it. But then he shows up.
He shows up.
And he knows, again, so many songs, so many great songs, good sing-alongs, easy to play. Sometimes they're more difficult, but he's really good at picking songs that not only can we sing along to, but most people can still play along to, even if they don't know it per se.
Yeah.
And another one that's on the list that I want to mention is Jen Scott.
Yeah.
She's another one who comes to the jams regularly, and she we've known her as a great singer. She's got a fabulous voice, and has written a few good songs too, and knows she covers a lot of really good songs. She's a really great performer, but she's never performed at a Renaissance festival. And then this year, she finally got a gig at Scarborough Fair, which didn't happen.
Right.
So hopefully, I believe we're all going to get the same contract for next year, and hopefully next year everything will open up. Fingers crossed. But we got into the habit that no matter where we were in the circle, when it was closing time, I always sing the last song, but Jen always sings what we started to call the Jen Ultimate song. And so she would always, and she'd always pick a really good song, a good sing-along-y kind of thing. And she would sing that song, and then I would always end with, almost always, but pretty much always, end with What a Wonderful World.
I want to thank you all for coming out tonight. I know it's kind of a virtual coming out party, but I see leaves of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright blessed day and the dark sacred night, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, they're also on the faces of the people passing by. I see friends shaking hands and saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I'd love to hear Amanda play that squeeze chorus. You got something to add to that, Lena? Guess who gets the bridge? Thomas. just want to sing it again. I see leaves of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright blessed day and the dark sacred night, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, they're also on the faces of the people passing by. I see friends shaking hands and saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. You know that I do.
And we love you too. It's Twoo.
I hear babies cry, I watch them grow. They'll learn so much more than I'll ever know, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Say goodnight, Rio.
Good night, Rio.
Good night, Rio. El Presidente. And because that's what we call the Nuevo Chile national anthem, and the proprietor, the person who's really hosting the jams, is Rio Blue,
Right.
and Mary Lee, but it started out as Rio's Land, and they're in TRF, and he also runs the junk at Scarborough where we have that jam, and he calls it his national anthem. So we end with it.
There you go.
And it's a great song. I
Yeah.
love that song. That's such a sweet song, and it's a little jazzy, a little hard to play along with for some people, also because it's in the key of F. But it's not that hard to learn, and it's great to sing. People love singing it, so that's
Wonderful. Diane Lynn's on the list.
yeah.
She is the Bard
O'Neill.
O'Neill, right.
Yep, I've worked with her in several capacities over the years. We've shared stages mostly at Scarborough and TRF, and often our sets will overlap. I'd much prefer to play with somebody, sing with somebody,
Yeah.
than sing alone. So I will encourage her to stay on. She'll say, "I'll do a song,"
Right.
and then I'll go, "Hey, how about this song?" and by the time it's done, we're done. My
Yeah.
set's done. Time for us to leave. Great voice, really great presence, and she has this uncanny ability to remember people's names,
Really?
which I don't.
Okay.
I'm highly impressed. Somebody will walk up and I've seen you. You've been at
4 of my sets in the last 3 weeks, but I don't know your name. And you probably told it to me twice.
Yeah.
I just am not that good at it. I jokingly, only slightly jokingly, say that the brain section that covers names is also the one with song lyrics are. And if I remember your name, I'm going to forget a song lyric.
Oh, you can't do that. Right. There's a balance.
But she and I also, with Bob and Leslie, Bob and Bob's wife, Leslie, worked as a Christmas quartet for many years in the Houston area.
Merry Minstrel.
The Merry Minstrels, which still exists. It's a trio. It went down to a trio a few years ago, and then Leslie went off the road, so we hired Amanda Kitchens to cover, and then and Bob passed away during the Christmas season a couple years back, and now Jen Scott is the third.
Ah, she's the third Merry Minstrel.
Which the only problem I ended up having with that is that I always sang harmony, almost always, and I didn't realize that I was hiring 2 altos.
Amanda and
Jen. And so it either became change keys,
Okay.
or I sing melody, and they're both brilliant at coming up with harmonies. So that in most songs, that's where we ended up.
Ah.
And which is great. I say it's not really a problem. It's just that it's like when we got started in the first few rehearsals, I'm like, oh, okay, all right, well, let's just do this, and it's great fun. They're easy to work with. The audience seems to love them. I did make Amanda plays. She plays the accordion, which is a big, bulky instrument.
Yeah.
And loud. And I made her go get a melodica. Are you familiar with a melodica?
Yes.
And which, for those of you who are listening in, it's basically a keyboard instrument that you blow into.
Right.
And so she got a really cheap one the first year and decided, hey, this is not so bad. So we got her a good one the next year.
Ah.
And so one of the great things about the Merry Minstrels was Bob's ability to play. And so we would sing a couple verses of a song, and Bob would play it through once, give us a little vocal rest,
Yeah.
and then we'd finish the song. And so I wanted that to continue. And Amanda's a brilliant instrumentalist, so I said, well, the accordion's really not going to work, because we have really, like, we play in restaurants sometimes where the owner goes, go play for them over there. We're squeezing in, and the waiters are bumping into us on the way by, and so the melodica she can hold really close to her chest,
Right.
and just put the little tube up into her mouth,
And
play her
play
bit,
it. Sure.
and then drop the tube and sing the next verse. And so,
Terrific.
yeah, it's we've kept that dynamic and that ability to take a little break, and we can play just a pure instrumental if we need to
Right.
rest our voices.
Right.
Whereas a lot of these madrigal groups or Christmas quartets
Yeah.
that don't play any instruments, they're singing for an hour straight, and that's tiring. It's a workout.
You mentioned virtuoso player. And what comes to mind whenever I think of that is Dr. Sick.
Oh, yeah.
Your choice of him as the MC for Bob's Memorial. Perfect.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, he is an impresario. He's done like burlesque shows and things like that.
Yeah.
He's definitely a natural MC. And an interesting little story about him was I also know him from Kerrville, and I knew his ability. He played with the Silent Street Spankers and several other groups in the Austin area, and I had told him we worked at the same little volunteer. I was a volunteer at Kerrville for many years, and we worked at the same. It was like we called staff records, because so many people on the volunteer staff were musicians and had records, but we couldn't sell them in the main theater with all the main stage acts. So we had this little booth out in the campground that we sold. We were both on the staff of that. And we get to talking, and I tell him about Renaissance festivals, and he's less than impressed. It seems to me anyway, and thinks that I get the impression that he thinks, at the very least, it would be limiting to his skill set, because I mean he knows all these jazz songs and all this sort of stuff that's not really a Renaissance, and then I see him a few years later at a farmer's market in Austin, and we get to talking, and I mentioned it's kind of the same thing. You know, it's a great gig. I love how it's so easy to make bookings. It's not one night. It's 8 weekends, and he still seems like, yeah, I got a good thing going here, that kind of thing. And then a couple of years later, I can't remember. Maybe it was Mark Caudill, one of the violinists the sequence of violinists who replaced Malcolm with Cantiga, was ready to move somewhere else, and so they were looking for a new violinist, and they'd asked me for recommendations, and I gave them a few recommendations, but said I really don't know anybody that would do it, you know, and then Bob calls me and says, well, Owl, our friend Owl Morrison, Owl suggests that we hire this guy named Sick. And I said, if you can get Sick, get him.
Yeah.
I don't think he wants to do it, but I mean, he's phenomenal, you know. And then it turns out he was between gigs or something, and he realized that his skill set fits perfectly.
Yes.
Because Cantiga especially, they use, you know, songs from the 1200s and 13s, 14s, 1500s, things like that. But they play them with an attitude of a jazz player.
Yeah.
They do, like a jazz player will play the melody and then start getting farther and farther away from the melody and then come back to the melody to finish.
Right.
That's exactly what they do with Cantiga.
Yeah.
And Bob, when Sick first started, Bob was still at the height of his abilities, and so Sick and Bob just played off each other so much. And they have a cellist who comes out to do the Texas Renaissance Festival, or used to before he moved to Minnesota or wherever it is. Max Dyer.
I watched him play Purple Haze on the cello. I was just
He's
inspired,
another one
right?
of those brilliant players. And the three of them in the same band, with Martha basically just holding that rock steady rhythm.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal.
That's the only word for it. When those players get together. Where did Sick get his name?
I really don't know. He already had it when he was Dr. Sick, is what he calls himself. And that fit his stage persona perfectly.
When he holds forth on a violin, it's just Sick.